Page 4 starts off with evaluating the expression, show all work, and circle your final answer. So for number 33, we have 4.24 over x, for x equaling 0.8 or 8/10. So what we do first is we plug in what we know for x. So we would rewrite this problem as 4.24 over 0.8. Now we're going to divide that out. Remember, top dog in the house. I'll write that at the top so we don't forget. Top dog in the house, meaning that our numerator is going to go in our division house. So if we were going to divide this out by hand, which we normally would have to, we would write 4.24 on the inside of that division house, 0.8 on the outside. And what we have to remember is when we're dividing with decimals, we make sure this outside number doesn't have any decimals. So we'd have to swoop this once to the right. So again, we'd swoop the number inside the division house once to the right and bring that up right away. So we knew exactly where our decimal would have to go in our final answer. And once we divide that out, we end up getting 5.3 as our final answer, or 5 3/10. So for 34, again, we plug in what we know for our variable, n minus 2/3, and for n equaling 3/4. So we plug 3/4 minus 2/3. We have to figure out what that is. Now, since we have fractions, we have to make sure, since we're subtracting, we have common denominators. So we need to find a common denominator between 4 and 3. And I figured that to be 12. So I multiply this first fraction by 3, the second fraction by 4. So we get the same denominator there. It ends up being 9/12 minus 8/12. Since we have the common denominator, we keep that the same, and we just deal with our numerators. We're going to subtract 9 minus 8, which is just 1. So our final answer should just be 1/12. Skipped a couple there. So for 35 and 36, these are word problems. So our final answer should be written in a complete sentence. Frank bought 12.6 gallons of gas for $26.96. How much to the nearest cent? So I'm going to underline that, make sure it's to the nearest cent, since we are dealing with money here. We have to make sure we only have 2 decimal points there. What is the cost per gallon of gas? Now I'm going to set up a proportion here, a ratio, and it's going to be 26 so for every $26.96, we end up getting 12.6 gallons. Now we want to find out how much per gallon. So I'm going to divide both top number and bottom number by 12.6, because gallons is on the bottom here, and I want to make sure that's every 1 gallon, not every 12.6. So I'm dividing both top and bottom, both numerator and denominator, by 12.6 to find out how much money per gallon. Now when I'm looking at this here, I would set this up 26.96 in the inside the division house. So 26.96 here and 12.6 on the outside. Again, we have to swoop that decimal, bring it up. And you end up getting, to the nearest cent, about $2.14. Now, I'm not finished here, since I know my answer has to be in a complete sentence, complete thought. Make sure we wrap in math. So I would answer the question. The question is, how much to the nearest cent was the cost per gallon of gas? So I should write 1 gallon of gas costs about, and the about word is very important there since we are rounding, $2.14. Something along those lines, as long as we're answering per gallon of gas. Doesn't have to be the exact same sentence as I have here, but something very similar. Making sure we're restating the question, answering the question, and proving it with our work to the side. Again, 36 is another word problem. It says Lucy drank 3/4 pint of bottled water. Sam drank 3/5 of a pint of bottled water. How many pints did Lucy and Sam drink total? So since we see this total number, or this total word here, we know we're going to add. So this is just going to be a simple addition problem. So I take 3/4 and I'm going to add 3/5 to that. Now again, with fractions, since we're adding here, we still have to get those common denominators. So what I'm going to do is change the common denominator, or the denominator on both of these fractions to be the same thing. So I'm going to change them into 20ths by multiplying this first fraction numerator, denominator by 5. This second fraction, numerator and denominator by 4. I end up getting 15/20 plus 12/20. Now again, since I have that common denominator and I'm adding, I keep the denominator the same, and I'm going to add the numerator. So 15 plus 12 is 27. Now that is an improper fraction, so I'm going to change that into a mixed number, which ends up being 1 and 7/20, because 20 goes into 27 once with 7 left over, so 1 and 7/20. Now, again, complete sentence, complete thought. We're going to wrap in math once again for this word problem. So our final answer should make sure we restate and answer the question. So how many pints did Lucy and Sam drink total? Lucy and Sam drank 1 and 7/20 pint of water. And we are finished with that word problem. Now going on to 37, 38, and 39. Solve the following equations, circle your answer, then check your work. Now check is in all capital letters, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to highlight that. It's very important here. Checking is our check step, so we have to make sure we include that to get all of our credit. So first, for number 37, x minus 1/4 equals negative 3/8. What I want to do here is get x by itself. I'm always trying to isolate that variable. So the first step is to get x all by itself. So I'm going to, since I'm subtracting 1/4 here, I'm going to do the opposite to undo that. So I'm going to add 1/4 here, add 1/4 there. So those fourths cancel out. I have x equaling negative 3/8 plus 1/4. Now I can't do anything with this yet because, again, with these fractions, I got to make sure I have common denominators. So I'm changing this really quick here to 2/8 so I can see this a little bit better. And I end up getting x to be equal to negative 1/8. I have negative 3/8 plus a 2/8 here. So it's just negative 1/8. Now, I have that to be my final answer. So I'm going to circle that there because that's what I believe to be correct. But I have to make sure that I show my check step. So my check step, I'm going to make sure I label it so I know what I'm showing here. So the first step is to recopy the problem. So x minus 1/4 equals negative 3/8. Second step, plug in what I found my variable to be. So negative 1/8 minus 1/4 equals negative 3/8. Now, I know 1/4 to be 2/8, so I'm going to have negative 1/8 minus 2/8 equals negative 3/8, and negative 1/8 minus 2/8 is negative 3/8. So that does equal, of course, negative 3/8. So I know that is correct. So my check step just told me that I did my problem correctly. So I know I can move on to my next problem and know that I got that problem correct. Now 38 is negative 3.14y equals 53.38. Now this right here is multiplication. So what I want to do to undo multiplication, the opposite, the inverse right there, is going to be division. So I'm going to divide both sides by the number connected to my variable, which in this case is negative 3.14. So I'm dividing both sides by negative 3.14. Now if I look at the number on my right of that equal sign, it's 53.38. So that is a positive number, and I'm dividing it by a negative number. So whatever y equals, it should be something negative. Now I'm dividing two decimals. So I would have the top dog in the house, put that 53.38 inside the division house, negative 3.14. On the outside, I'd have to swoop twice, because I have to make sure this outside number doesn't have any decimals. So I'm doing negative 314 into 5,338. When I do that long division, I end up my y being equal to negative 17. So I'm going to circle that again. I'm going to use my check step to double check, make sure I've done everything correctly, and then I can move on. So here again, the first step is to recopy my problem, negative 3.14y equaling 53.38. Second step, plug in what I found my variable to be, which in this case is negative 17, equals 53.38. Now I'm looking at these two numbers on the left side of my equal sign, negative 3.14 multiplied by negative 17. Now both of these numbers are negative. So when I'm multiplying a negative by a negative, I know it's going to be positive. So I know for a fact I got the positive, that sign correct. Now if I did when I do my multiplication on the side to check it, I'm going to have 3.14 and 17. When I multiply that out, I end up getting 5338, but I have two numbers behind my decimal, so I just swoop it twice to the left, and I end up getting 53.38, which equals itself, 53.38. So I know I'm correct there, so I can move on. Again, now knowing I got 2 out of 2 correct, which is awesome. Now 39, again, it's negative 2k equaling 1/4. Now this again is multiplication, so I'm going to divide to get k by itself by negative 2. So I'm dividing by negative 2. So those negative 2's cancel out, and I have k equaling 1/4 divided by negative 2 over 1. I just changed my number into a fraction by putting it over 1. Didn't change its value, just changed what it looked like, so I can see that I'm dealing with fractions here. So my k equals 1/4 multiplied by negative 1/2. Now I changed this by using my change flip rules when I'm dividing fractions. So I now have k equaling 1/4 multiplied by negative 1/2. So when I'm multiplying fractions, I just multiply across, numerator to numerator, denominator to denominator. So when I do that math there, I end up getting k to equal negative 1/8. Now again, the last step here is my check step. So let me change my color so I can change check step here. So you can tell the difference between my work. Oh, I'm going to circle that above. Now again, first step, recopy the original problem. Plug in what I found my variable to be, negative 1/8 equals 1/4. Negative 2 over 1 times negative 1/8 is negative 2 over negative 8, which is 1/4 when you simplify that fraction. So 1/4 equals 1/4. So I am correct on that one.